Hello, everyone. I'm James Milan. Welcome to this DEI update. DEI, as you know, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have our very own Department of DEI, one person, Jillian Harvey. Here she is. I'll tell you, it's a coup just to get Jill on the line with how busy she is these days. Jill, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
We are going to talk about, people are going to get a real flavor for when I say you're busy, they're going to get a flavor for what I'm talking about as we begin to talk about the things coming up in April, which will include the fact that April is both Stand Against Racism and Autism Acceptance Month. We're going to want to talk about the recent statement about the situation in Ukraine, et cetera. But let's start by just asking, hey, what's going on? What's new in the department?
Yeah. So you are right. It is very busy per usual. But I also feel like time is flying, so it's a blur. But the DEI division is cruising along with its plans. So the community equity audit that we put an RFP out for, I want to say this was back at the end of February. We've got a decent number of proposals. So I'm in the process of working with the small team to make a selection on who we're going to bring in for some interviews. And we'll be reaching out to firms, hopefully, I want to say soon, to set up those interviews and work.
Yeah, will you just remind people what that is?
Yeah, sorry. So the community equity audit is going to be, the timeline I put is about a 10 to 12 months really review of what's going on in the town in terms of equity. So we're going to have the consultant that we select based off of their proposals really be able to take a look at, I'd say, the climate, and I don't mean like environmental, but more so the cultural climate, doing some focus groups with community members to really help us identify some of the barriers to access that we know exist. We just don't have the capacity right now to identify them ourselves. So looking at that, but that also leads into some of the language access that we want to do as well, because again, we need some help identifying what languages we need, what are going to be the best types of translation services, and really centering on community engagement and outreach as well. We know that there's some issues in terms of finding folks and getting the word out and engagement. So the audit will focus on that too.
And I understand also that there may be positions that are open.
Yeah, so the DEI division is also adding 2 new positions. So there's going to be an ADA coordinator, so the American Disabilities Act, and which is currently I have that role, but so we'll get a full-time position for that, and a community outreach and engagement coordinator. So both of those have been posted for a few weeks. We have been receiving applications. I think they'll be closing by next week. And then from there, same thing, we'll start that review process and do some interviews. But just, yeah, we're moving along. It's a lot happening at once, but it's exciting.
Yeah, so I think by next week, we should just kind of alert folks that what we're talking about is the beginning of April, pretty much. This will, in that first week of April, this will close. But the important thing is that these positions are going to be filled. And let's just remind people for a second, what you're saying is you're hiring for 2 new positions, at least one of which is full-time, perhaps both. And what they are going to do is what you have been doing yourself for these last number of years. So again, but the reminders will be constant, folks out there, of why we're saying that Jill is busy. So let us move on though. Just recently, 3 of the commissions that you work closely with issued a statement on what's going on in Ukraine. Those commissions being the Human Rights Commission, the Disability Commission, and the LGBTQ plus Rainbow Commission. So give us a little bit of background on the statement itself, and then just summarize, of course, what they had to say, please.
Yeah. So I mean, typically with things that are happening locally, globally, nationally. The Human Rights Commission will usually take a stance and put a statement out. They've been doing this, I want to say, for the last at least year or more. And so a few weeks ago, yeah, I just had a discussion with the human rights chairs and about putting out a joint statement regarding the issue that's happening in Ukraine, just because it started as a statement solely focusing on support and showing solidarity with Ukraine. But as we further discussed it and invited more voices to the table with the other commissions and DTG, we really recognize that this is a complicated issue that has a lot of different components that we didn't feel comfortable just saying, yep, we stand with you, or we're showing support without acknowledging some of these other aspects. And so we wanted to really highlight the focus on human rights issues and the refugee situation, but also pointing out, the role that bias plays in all of this, and that this is a reminder that we need to protect, value, and uplift democracy, because not only with Ukraine, but this type of situation is unfortunately happening all of the time. Maybe not getting the same media coverage, but it is happening. And there's something that we can all do in taking part and acting and doing our part to really uplift and protect democracy.
Well,
kind of what summed it up.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that, because you're right. Everybody, I think, there is a predictable kind of message that would be given about what's going on, about Russia's invasion, basically, let's call it what it is, of Ukraine, and the humanitarian crisis that has precipitated, et cetera. Okay, and I'm sure that that's in there. But like you said, it's an opportunity to tie that and connect that to larger issues that we have to deal with right around us, as well as in other parts of the globe. So glad to hear that you guys took advantage of the opportunity to really give a comprehensive kind of message around these, the importance of democracy and the importance of trust and equity, et cetera. So. Okay, well, thank you for that. I hope I didn't interrupt you before you were done.
No.
Okay, good. I mentioned earlier, April is Stand Against Racism Month, and also Autism Autism Acceptance Month. So can you tell us about each of these kind of basically their awareness campaigns, and what activities or events are going to be connected to these two?
Yeah, definitely. So last year, the town participated in YW Boston's annual Stand Against Racism campaign, which is every April. And so we'll be doing that again. So this month, what I'm planning is that each week in the month of April, there will be a workshop that's available for town and school employees to participate in. So each of these sessions will be focused on race. It'll be the main topic, but they'll be explored in different ways. So for example, the first session I'm hosting is a podcast discussion. So we'll be listening to a episode from Code Switch. It's a podcast through NPR that looks back at the last 2 years and how 2020 was deemed like the year of racial reawakening, and just having a deeper discussion about that. Okay, it's been 2 years since we had this reawakening, but what's really happened, who's been impacted, and who's already moved on. Another workshop that I'm going to be co-facilitating with Margaret Friedel Thomas from DEI for Schools. That's going to be understanding bias and how they lead to microaggressions. There's a few other topics as well. We've got representation in media, why it matters, and then also some exploration of racial identity and what that really means. So I'm really excited for these sessions, and just to also have the opportunity to have cross-department spaces for folks to engage and learn and share, because that doesn't happen often. When we did it last year, we had department heads hold their own conversations during either their staff meetings or finding a time where their whole department could come together, and I attended most of those, which was wonderful. But I know it's a busy time, so I wanted to try and take the burden off of other folks and be able to provide something that everyone can opt into if they want to. So again, that's for employees. And that will be all month. So I'm gearing up for that.
Yeah. Again, as you said that, I'll just interject, as you were describing or reminding us of what the sessions were like last year. I remember very well the conversation you and I had at that time about how that was going, and it was exciting. There was so much participation, really, from across all the departments. But I cannot believe that was a year ago. I'm sure it feels even more that way to you. That's amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. So then there's autism acceptance. I don't want you to. I don't want to derail you.
The Disability Commission, the Rainbow Commission, and the Human Rights Commission will be co-sponsoring an event on April 12th. It'll be on Zoom. But it's in recognition of Autism Acceptance Month. So this discussion will be a speaking engagement with Lyric Holmans, who will be our guest speaker. That's going to discuss and explore the intersectionality of neurodivergent folks and LGBTQIA+ identities, and really learning how to support people who identify as neurodivergent. So what that means is folks who have autism or ADHD, etc., or identify as LGBTQIA+, or both. So those two worlds coming together and just having an open and honest discussion about that. That's going to be, like I said, on the 12th. And then additionally, the public schools, their LGBTQIA+ Rainbow Task Force, in partnership with the Rainbow Commission and the Human Rights Commission, they're launching their two-part series. Well, to start their two-part series, which is LGBTQIA+ Community Conversations. So the first one's actually taking place on March 29th at Town Hall. These are going to be in person for the time being. But these panels will highlight the experiences of LGBTQIA+ students in Arlington Public Schools, and give an overview of the different types of language, definitions, and terms, and best practices that should be used to ensure and promote safe and inclusive learning environments. The next session, they will have one in April. That'll be on Tuesday, April 26th, also at Town Hall in the auditorium. So it's going to be a busy time.
That's for sure. And as you mentioned those, and mentioned that they are going to be in Town Hall and in person, that reminds me to ask you about the other events that you were describing related to standing against racism and related to autism acceptance, et cetera. Are those also going to be in-person events?
So those will still be on Zoom. For the Standing Against Racism ones, we've kind of slotted them to be around lunchtime so that hopefully folks can tune in when they have some time, try to time it right. But just because we're hoping to be able to span all the way from employees on the school side and across town, we figured Zoom would still be the safest best bet for hopefully higher participation. And with the event on the 12th, that is also on Zoom, just because when we were planning it, we didn't really know what things were going to be.
Of course. And you've just given two of the best, most compelling reasons for us to continue with these Zoom get-togethers, which we are all bone tired of. I know you have had back-to-back Zoom today alone, but there are two really, really good reasons. One of which is, when you don't know if it's going to be safe to be live. And the other, which I think we have all discovered and you guys are taking advantage of, is it does increase access. It does increase the opportunity for people to be able to participate or monitor what is the discussions that are going on. And that's super important. So just wanted to clarify all those events that you were first describing in terms of standing against racism and also autism acceptance will be Zoom events. And then these LGBTQIA sponsored, the school sponsored, or the school focused community conversation events, those are going to be live at Town Hall.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad I got that straight. Is there anything else? I mean, obviously, could there be anything else? But
There's some
yes, because
stuff
we're
coming
talking to
up.
Jill Harvey at the DEI department, there is probably.
There's stuff happening in May, but I think I'll save that. We'll get through April, and then I'll come back and we can hammer out all the things that are coming up in the next month.
All right. Well, phew, right. Take a breath, Jill, because you'll have about 4 minutes before you're on to your next thing, I am sure. But she is one person, Jillian Harvey, doing a lot of work, soon to get some help, we hope. But really appreciating, as always, that you have carved out some time to spend with us. Thanks for being here. We really do. We don't take it for granted. We understand.
Thanks. I love coming.
So glad.
Sessions. It's great.
She is Jillian Harvey, our DEI director here in town. I am James Milan. This has been the DEI update. We do really appreciate her time, and we appreciate yours. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.